Well, I think the front end, the obvious, is that we've really log jammed a volume of talent because of what we were unable to select a year ago. And then you add to that, adding the eligibility, you're seeing fall rosters at Division I schools exceeding 50 players. And they are, in a typical year, their cap is 35. And now you're seeing 50, 55 players on a fall college roster, and they are going to be allowed the flexibility to carry that volume through the spring. So ultimately, it creates a lot of roster pressure, because the one thing that they didn't change is the innings that they're going to play. There's only so many innings, and that's where, I've had the opportunity to coach at a bunch of different places. And I was fortunate to spend a couple years at Florida State. I've been to some places that just awful, just horrendous. Regardless, we had innings available for people to fill. And the only way you're going to get better as a baseball player when it comes down to it is playing competitive innings, because we're a decision-maker sport. We have, the scouting has the term 5 o'clock hitter. Everybody's good in BP, and everybody's lights out in the bullpen. It's being able to play our game and develop the instincts of playing our game, to sharpen that decision making of what pitches you're swinging at and what you're not swinging at, for what pitches you're throwing when the game is on the line and the runner's at second base with 2 outs. You've got to play our game. You need to be really smart about identifying a couple of things. Where can I play? And where is the greatest avenue for playing time? And a lot of that has to do with what's on that roster, how many do they annually recruit, what is the frequency in which first-year players gain playing time at that particular place. These are all factors that should influence the decision making. I'd love to say that everybody in this room is going to make an academic-based decision on where they go to school. I think we all realize that's false. We're making a baseball decision. Now, that decision is going to be made either by choosing where do I honestly fit and where do I have the greatest access to playing time, or it's going to be made based on satisfying ego. And that is that I'm willing to commit to big school X, and I know they've got 17 other shortstop commits, but those guys are all not as good as me. I'm the guy that, hey, when they told every one of us that we're going to be the starting shortstop, they meant it with me, and these guys have to go find another position. You make an ego-based decision. If you're more concerned about what's on the front of that shirt and walking around saying, yeah, we're kind of leaning towards big school X or whatever, then you're going to find yourself potentially in the transfer portal. You're going to find yourself maybe at the institution, but you're not an everyday player. You might not even be a part-time player. You might be redshirt. You need to make accurate choices that go beyond ego. You've got to make common sense decisions about playing time. The second thing about the professional end of things, I'll be honest with you. This past year, we were hoping for a 10-round draft. It got knocked down to a 5-round draft. It really eliminated a lot of people that would have normally been selected that are now available for this year's draft. We're hoping for a 20-round draft. That might be pie in the sky, but the biggest concern is after 2021, we don't know what the draft's going to look like. I can't tell you what it's going to be, because it has to be negotiated as a part of the players' union and ownership discussions to get that collective bargaining agreement. So you might see the end to having a 40-round draft or a 30-round draft. You might see the end to huge, ridiculous bonuses for unproven players just because they got selected early in the draft. Here's the other reality Rustin just brought up. against the common sense based thing of apparently, I thought growing the game was adding more. Apparently our leadership at MLB thinks growing the game is reducing the number of teams. We're reducing the number of minor league affiliates per team. That means less jobs. That means less need for players acquired domestically, particularly with an active international acquiring process. We have less jobs now. We have less jobs. We are going to be selecting with more scrutiny than we used to when it was a 40 or 50 round draft, and we were just selecting everybody's, off the 9th Street Marauders and Billy's neighbor's cousin's uncle and all this sort of stuff. It becomes extremely competitive. Extremely competitive. So you make good decisions about your college choice. Make good decisions about where you fit. Make playing time the priority over ego of saying where you're going. And then, regardless of level, and we get this question a lot, and this is going to sound like the canned answer, but it is the absolute truth. If you can play, our job as scouts is to find you. And we will. It's hard to keep secrets now. There ain't no hideout guys anymore. That little thing in our pocket buzzes all the time. And oh, by the way, when they talk about your social media, I can tell you the New York Yankees employ an army of people to scour. Anybody I turn in is automatic fair game to get a full body cavity search, an IRS level evaluation of everything that there is about you.
Does that mean, Brian, less four-year juniors are going to get drafted? Does that mean less freshmen and sophomores at the junior college level are going to get drafted? Does that mean because there's less players getting drafted, they're going back to college for their senior year?
Yes.
Or they're going to a four-year school? What does that do? Does that create a log jam? Obviously, the way I'm looking at it is college baseball is about to get really, really good.
I think it gets really competitive. You talk to almost any college coach, they're in a little bit of a panic right now because it was a good thing to get everybody. It didn't cost them a year last year. Everybody could come back, and you're a COVID sophomore and a COVID junior and all this kind of stuff. The problem is they're only accounting financially for 1 year. So there is a math problem on the horizon, particularly at the Division I level, where they've got 11.7 scholarships, and they're already committing people, and they're going to have they have a math problem coming up in terms of roster spots and money to cover it. So yes, it becomes a lot more competitive, a lot more condensed, because there are more people available on the horizon here. There are more players available than spots available.
And to jump in on the college side, the majority of our roster are freshmen again. So they got that year of eligibility back because of COVID. Since the majority of the schools in the north have already canceled their baseball season, we don't know if they're going to give another year of eligibility back again after this year. So it could create a huge logjam. We don't know what's happening. So yes, I agree, baseball at all levels is going to be really good.
I kind of disagree at the Division III level. Our kids are going to graduate because they're not going to pay an extra year of $60,000 just to play baseball.
Well said, Coach Montgomery, well said. All right, we got to move on to our next question. I've got a parent here in the back.